To multiply polynomials, we distribute, because that's what distributive means, is to multiply. So if I have this 2x, I want to multiply it by everything on this side. So if I multiply 2x times x, I get 2x squared, and 2x times 5 is 10x. And then if I do the same thing with the 3, multiply 3 times x, I get 3x, and I take 3 times 5, I get 15. And once we have it multiply, we have to make sure we combine like terms. These two have the same letter, same exponent, so they're like terms. So I'm going to add them. Everything else doesn't get added, and so I get 13x plus 15. And I also have it in standard form because I have a highest exponent. So this would be my answer for the distributive property. Now there's a fancy way of remembering the distributive property. It's called FOIL, which means you take the first term, and I'm going to highlight this right here. You take your first term, you multiply them, take your outer terms, the inside terms, and the last terms. But basically, you are distributing. So without doing anything different than we did last time, I'm going to take my first term and multiply it by the first term in the other binomial. So this is 6y squared. Then I'm going to take my outside, which are these two outside ones, and I get 10y. Then I'm going to take my inside, so negative 7 times 3 is a negative 21y. And then I'm going to take my last terms, negative 7 times 5, I get negative 35. And if you combine like terms, these are like terms, the middle terms, I get a negative 11y minus 35. And so there's my answer. Same exact thing I just did in the last slide, except that we call it FOIL. So let's do this next problem the same way. So I'm going to take my first term and multiply it by my first term, which is 8a squared. And then I'll take the 4a times the negative 9, which is negative 36a. And I'll take my negative 5 times my 2, which is a negative 10a. And then I'm going to take my negative 5 times my negative 9, which would be a positive 45. Middle terms are alike, so I add them. So I get 8a squared, negative 46a, plus 45. And since it's already in standard form, I have all my like terms combined. That's my answer. Now, when you have more than two terms, like we have right here, we're still going to do the distributive property. So understanding how to distribute is more important than FOIL. So I'm going to take my 6x and multiply by each term over here. So 6x times 2x squared is 12x cubed. 6x times a negative 3x is a negative 18x squared. And 6x times negative 5 would be a negative 30x. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing with the 5, but I'm going to put the like terms under each other. So 5 times 2 is 10x squared. So I'm going to put that under my x squared. And 5 times a negative 3 would be a negative 15x. And 5 times a negative 5 would be a minus 25. So in red I did the 6x, and in blue I did the 5. And now from here I can add the like terms, which they're already lined up. This is called the vertical method. So I get 12x cubed because there's nothing to add to. I get negative 8x squared. I get a negative 45x and a minus 25. The nice part about this is, once again, it's in standard form, and I've combined my like terms. And so there's my answer using the distributive property when there's more than two terms. So let's do the distributive property again with this problem right here, letter B. So I'm going to take my 2y squared and times it by my first term. So I'm going to get 6y to the 4th power. Then I'm going to take my 2y squared and multiply by the second one, so it's going to get a negative 10y cubed. Notice I'm multiplying numbers and adding exponents. So 2y squared times 2 is 4, so 2 times 2 is 4, and y squared, there's only 2 of them. Now I'm going to do the second one. I'm going to do the 3y times each one, so 3y times 3y squared is 9y cubed. So I'm going to put that under the same letter. I'm going to do the same thing here. 3 times negative 5 would be a negative 15y squared, and 3 times 2, 3y times 2 would be a plus 6y. And then I have to do my last number, so negative 1 times 3y is a negative 3y squared, so I put my, under the same letter, negative 1 times negative 5 would be a positive 5y, and negative 1 times 2 would be a minus 2. Doing this method of the vertical method, we end up with everything lined up. So all I do is add straight down. And adding, the exponents don't change. So this is a negative 1y cubed. It's just the numbers get added. So 4 plus a negative 15 is a negative 11, and negative 3 is a negative 14. And the letters stay the same. And then I get 11 and minus 2. So the vertical method is probably the best method to help keep the same or like terms lined up.